In 2005, Bandai and Namco merged, forming Bandai Namco. In this part, we're going to see how they fared with the maze gameplay, but first we have a few holdouts from before the merger. Around the time the merger was announced, we got PacMan Arrangement, not to be confused with PacMan Arrangement. This was later renamed to PacMan Remix in some releases to avoid confusion. That said, it does a lot of the same things as the original arrangement in subsequent maze games, but it doesn't do them as well. It adds new stage elements, but the mazes themselves are pretty unremarkable. The bosses are pretty cool and are probably the best part of the game, but the presentation is pretty bland and things don't feel as satisfying as they could be as a result. PacMan Roll 2 on the Game Boy Advance is not very well liked, and it's honestly not hard to see why. It's very unpolished, frustratingly designed, and just not anywhere near as good as the title that shares its name. However, like the console game, it does have Galaxian mazes. To compensate for the screen crush, they show you not only where the ghosts are in relation to you, but also through the position of their eyes, where they are headed. This helps out tremendously. It's not the most ideal maze gameplay, but for what it is, it's not horrible. Whether it was intended to be or not, a new direction soon surfaced. Toru Iwatani came back with a brand new maze game, PacMan Championship Edition. Like prior maze games, it took the fundamentals of the original and expanded upon them. But this one did it a bit differently. For one, the maze changes while you're playing, and the general gameplay's been reworked for an emphasis on a crescendo of speed. The original emphasis on strategy still remains, but things get more hectic, complemented by flashier presentation. Is it up there with stuff like Arrangement, Pac-Mania, Adventures in Time, the original Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, or Maze Madness? I would argue no, but it's a perfectly solid entry and it's always great to play another game by the creator himself. There's also a demake to the NES that's actually pretty fun to try out with a killer Pac and Pal remix for the results screen. DX 3 years later is probably the most fundamental shift in the maze gameplay since Super Pac-Man. Unlike the prior maze game since Mania, this alters the fundamentals and reworks them to fit one element: speed. In this game, you are in direct control of your speed. Eating a lot of ghosts and racking up crazy combos increases your speed, dying or even making close calls decreases your speed. Ghosts follow you in ghost trains, long groups that grow when you pass by sleeping ghosts, but there are also stragglers to watch out for. Plus, some ghosts carry power pellets on them, and eating them resets the period of time that they're scared for. This game is all about building and retaining speed, racking up combos, and having the perfect run. As far as that goes, it actually does a really good job. It's a different take on Pac-Man, but it's one that works. The core elements of Pac-Man are altered, sure, but they're altered with purpose, and the game design decisions mesh really well together. Then in 2015, coming off the controversial Ghostly Adventures era, PacMan 256 was released on mobile, consoles, and PC. It's an endless runner based on the infamous glitch on round 256 of the original. The glitch is chasing you and you have to move ahead through the maze to avoid it. This ended up being relatively popular for 5 seconds, as it's a gamer reference that most people get. But it hasn't really been talked about a lot since. Why is that? Well, let's look at the game itself. It adds new power-ups which are neat and flashy, but end up leaving you way too overpowered. The ghosts are very easy to avoid regardless, and the glitch chasing you is barely even a factor unless you're trying to complete the maze, which is pointless to do. This just baffles me to no end. The huge part of Pac-Man is being thorough with your surroundings, developing an intimate feel for the space you're navigating and planning how best to use it. And these fundamentals transcend just the maze games. Even the platformers do this. And being different from the other games is fine if what you're making is good in its own right, but let's look at what we have here. It's just move forward and don't die, which, given how easy the ghosts are to avoid and how overpowered you are, it just isn't engaging. This game is trying to create a feedback loop where you're pulled back and forth between going forward and being slow so you can get everything and risk being absorbed by the glitch, but it fails at doing that. Championship Edition 2 came out the following year. This falls very much in the footsteps of DX, but makes a number of alterations. The ghosts wander throughout the stage, and there are hordes of sleeping ghosts blocking off most of the maze. Waking them up causes them to flock towards one of the ghosts, creating a ghost train. Pack dots often outline one clear path to follow exactly to win, and upon eating enough of them, a fruit will appear. Eating the fruit advances you to the next round. Sometimes a power pill, which are otherwise absent from the game, will appear instead of a fruit. Then, and only then, will you be able to eat the ghost. However, this game introduces bumping. And touching a ghost won't kill you, you'll just bump into them. Do that enough times and they'll get angry, and then they're actually dangerous, but they have bizarrely good anger management skills because they cool off really quickly. However, bumping into their ghost train counts as bumping them, unless you're trying to eat them. Then only eating them directly counts. When scared, the ghosts erratically move across predetermined paths, except when they decide not to for some reason, and you have to cut them off. But given the erratic manner in which they do so, the length of their trains, and the variable size of the spaces they circle around, this makes eating the ghosts annoyingly cumbersome. Stop! While Championship Edition DX was and is celebrated to this day, this one definitely had a far chillier reception, and it's not hard to see why. This game is way too scripted. Instead of analyzing your surroundings and trying to balance all the various factors at hand, here it's all one at a time. You're eating dots until you can eat a fruit, until you can eat a power pellet. And when that happens, you can't continue further until you eat all of the ghosts. This game basically comes to a halt when that happens. That sounds familiar. Oh yeah! Look, I know Bandai Namco wants to ignore the World games, but it might benefit them not to do that, because now they're repeating their mistakes. And yet, this presents the biggest variable in your playthrough because everything else is so repetitive. Between the pack dots outlining one clear path a lot of the time and sleeping ghosts preventing you from deviating from it, this game is basically a matter of, hey, can you follow this path? Like, exactly? With no mistakes? Congratulations, you win. That is until you reach these ghost sections where it becomes bumper cars. Instead of the game introducing various factors that pull you in different directions and make you have to make decisions quickly, this game is forcing you on a path and then forcing you off it. As a result, either the game is way too boring or it's just irritating. There's virtually no strategy, and due to the repetition, there's virtually no replay value either. This is made even worse when you're trying to play for completion, and if you are, this game will milk you for everything you're worth. Introducing Adventure Mode. No, I'm not going to compare it to Adventures in Time, Maze Madness, or Arrangement, because there's no point. This is a joke, a needlessly long and cruel joke. Adventure Mode is the same thing as the regular game, except you play the same mazes over and over again, and there's a set number of rounds, meaning there's even less variation than in Score Attack. There are also boss fights, which are just the same thing, except when the fruit appears, the ghosts get angry. That's it. However, you are awarded stars depending on difficulty. 1 star for normal, 2 stars for hard, 3 stars for pro. In order to fight each boss, you need to collect a certain number of stars. World 1, you need 10. World 2, 22. World 3, 34. World 4, 43. World 5, 58. World 6, 222! Yes, if you couldn't guess, that's every single star in the game. So if you were playing on anything other than Pro from the very start, you're going to have to backtrack and grind your way through every stage again. Well, if the game has you go through all that effort, surely the final boss has to be something special. Nope, it's exactly the same as all the others, and your reward for beating this boss is literally nothing. Not even credits.
It's not worth it! It's just not worth it!
To clarify, in the original release, your reward was a Galaga skin. Whoopee. However, if you're playing Championship Edition 2 Plus on Switch, you get nothing! You lose! This game is a mess. They threw random crap at the wall and saw what stuck. However, none of it actually does, so they just awkwardly taped it together. Now we come to the newest major release, PacMan 99 on the Nintendo Switch. This comes free with a Nintendo Switch Online membership, though there's a paid version with an offline CPU mode, a score attack mode, and a time attack mode. PacMan 99 is an online multiplayer competitive game where you compete against 98 other players to gain the title of Pac-1. Despite the game being largely based on the original Pac-Man, there are some elements from the Championship Edition games, namely ghost trains. By eating ghosts, you send what are called jammers to the other players. Gray jammers slow you down as you collide with them, but red ones will kill you. So you have a competitive game where you're bombarded by elements outside of your control, some of which kill you, being erratically spawned in a game where oftentimes your only options are to move forward or back. And in a game about being chased. Wow, that didn't take long! It doesn't stop there either, because despite this being a really bad idea even on paper, there are things in the game that make it even worse than it sounds. Though, there are also some things in this game that aren't abjectly terrible. For one, strategy is back, and to some degree the game reworks parts of Pac-Man to better fit what this game is trying to do, and the game manages to create various factors that pull you in different directions and force you to make quick decisions. While eating a fruit advances the round, you might not want to do that because of elements of the original game. When you advance the round, the ghosts get faster and the duration of time in which they get scared gets shorter. Meanwhile, clearing the maze makes you faster, so trying to do that as many times as you can to prepare for the jammers is something you want to aim to do, but doing so presents risks. There are plenty of times where just grabbing the fruit is the safer option, so there's a legitimate risk versus reward factor here. However, that's where the positives stop. Yes, strategy is back, but it's undermined by RNG. So the jammers spawn in on very short notice. At first, they stay put, but after a while they chase you, and there are a lot of them. The gray ones go from being an inconvenience to cheap bullshit. These things bombard you, leaving you moving along at a snail's pace as you desperately try to evade ghosts you no longer have the means to evade if you're not immediately close to a power pellet. The red ones aren't as fast, but they accumulate quickly, and they very easily can block off every single path you have before you know it. I've gotten Pac-1 multiple times, and even with that, if you keep getting in the top 10 and want to know how to go from scoring 5s to 1s, I cannot help you, because at that point, it's out of your control. Congratulations, you've reached the skill ceiling. Now pray that the game doesn't randomly decide to force you to lose. Truly the sign of a good competitive game. At that point, whether or not you win is ultimately based on one thing: luck. It's not a matter of skill, it's whether or not winning is even a possibility. I feel like I've said that before, like verbatim. It's not a matter of skill, it's a matter of whether or not winning is even a possibility. So let me get this straight. We've sunk so low that not only are we repeating the mistakes of past disappointments, but also bootlegs made by high schoolers, and yet somehow this is still better than the past 2 games! So as far as the more major releases go, that's more or less all of them. Most of the others are just very minor alterations on the original, from cross promotions to new layouts and etc. However, we're not done yet. There's one realm we've yet to touch. PacMan Party Royale is not a sequel to PacMan Party, but instead is a sequel to PacMan Battle Royale, which in turn is not to be confused with PacMan 99. I didn't cover Battle Royale because it's basically Championship Edition on a smaller scale but with cannibalism. Don't think about the implications, for the love of God, don't. There are some changes here. Eating Pac Dots speeds you up and you are highly incentivized to do so. There's also a new ghost named Itchy who gives you randomized effects that don't immobilize you like 99, but are still detrimental. Think more along the lines of the items from Mario Kart. If you are eaten, you become a ghost. This actually sounds like it could be alright. Nothing great, but alright. Unfortunately, we'll never know, because it's exclusive to Apple Arcade. Hell, Bandai Namco cares so little about that they don't even know how to spell it. Then we have Mega Tunnel Battle, yet another Battle Royale game. Here, 64 players are each given their own maze to clear, but all the mazes are connected and players can traverse between them, stealing points from each other. That actually sounds like a fun idea. Part of the reason it sounds promising is because
You didn't make it!
it was developed by Heavy Iron Studios. Yes, that Heavy Iron Studios. So it sounds like the pieces are coming together. This might be the first good maze game in quite some time. Unfortunately, we'll never know, because it's exclusive to Stadia. Thankfully, since this was a smaller release, the discussion around it hasn't been as hyperbolic, but it hasn't exactly been glowing either. The general consensus seems to be that it's kind of fun at first, but it gets old and repetitive super quickly. From there, I can't really comment as I have not played it myself. Who knows, maybe Purple Lamp will make a broken borderline unplayable Switch port of it. That said, there is one more game we haven't covered yet, and this one I was able to play. PacMan Geo. A while back, as an April Fool's Day joke, Google Maps let you play Pac-Man using the streets as a maze. Bandai Namco decided to turn that neat distraction into a full game. It was announced in 2019 and released in October of 2020, a year later. So this is a surefire thing, right? It's directly based on something that's already been done, it's using Google's map data directly, and they had at least a year to make this bite-sized mobile game based on an April Fool's Day joke. Surely this game, it doesn't work. Like with so many of the games since 2015, you'll never guess, there's a problem with the premise. So when designing a PacMan maze, there are some things you avoid. Stretches that go on for too long, dead ends, awkward turns, and unavoidably, all of that is here. In a place like a city, it's one thing, but if you're in New England like me, you get to play mazes literally designed by cows! That said, as if that wasn't enough, the controls in this game are atrocious. The developers clearly recognized the issues ahead, but if anything, they overcorrected. A lot. Pac-Man may very well decide to move places you never told him to. You move forward, he'll move forward, and then turn to the right for some reason. This game unintentionally becomes a sequel to Pac-Man 2. To rectify this, they have arrows show you the path that Pac-Man is going to go, but that wasn't there originally, so it was even worse before. Even as it is now, you are constantly fighting with the controls to get anywhere. Not to mention, the escape tunnels make no sense at all a lot of the time. And in one of the mazes I got, it was basically impossible to get to the other side again, as I was just being teleported to random points in the same damn corner. Also, this game is ludicrously unstable. While recording footage for this, I played 3 rounds. 2 out of 3 times, the game crashed upon completion. I'm not joking. The other time, this happened.
You'll be my lucky victim today. Hey guys, I'm Allie, and this is Matchmasters.
This very well may be the worst Pac-Man game ever made, and literally as I'm writing this, it's already dead. This game was shut down on October 28th, 2021. And this game was released in October of 2020. They threw this shit out there, said here's the new Pac-Man game, only for the general public to be subjected to just how bad it is. Then not even a year later, it becomes lost media. Welcome to what it's been like to be a Pac-Man fan for the past 6 years. So that's pretty much everything, and what can I say? Bandai Namco doesn't know what they're doing anymore. The new games feel like exercises in finding as many ways to mess up a Pac-Man game as possible. The series has never been this consistently awful. Yet these games have largely gone by with a free pass. People seem to just take a casual look at these games, proclaim,
"They look just like Pac-Man!"
before moving on to something else, while anything deeper than cursory glance shows just how horrific they are. And with that precedent set, I can't imagine anything good from this series for a long time to come. The spark is out. Pac-Mania? Pac-Land? Pac-N-Roll? Arrangement? That hasn't had a home release since the GameCube. Wait, Professor Pac is here? World 1 Chomp Chomp? Hang on, are those the World 1 idle animations? Okay, this collection looks absolutely fantastic. The presentation looks great and the selection is almost perfect. From the looks of it, this collection seems absolutely worth getting, and hopefully it's a sign of a greater effort going forward and the series turning around and being good again. Because aside from where the series has been from 2015 to 2021, Pac-Man is really worth cherishing. This series has put out a ton of truly excellent games, and are prime examples of the adage that just because a game is simple on the surface, that doesn't mean it's bad. You just need to carefully craft the experience and make it as engaging as it possibly can be. And hopefully they can take that to heart again, because goddamn, I'm sick of this shit. Well, since I wrote and recorded this, we got a new maze game, PacMan Community, which is exclusive to Facebook. It's basically like the multiplayer in the original PacMan Arrangement, where you're competing for points while also collectively trying to beat the maze together. On one hand, the maze layouts suck, which feels like the last thing they haven't messed up yet, but if you've seen the iOS version of Pac-Man, you'd know that's not true. On the other hand, not only does the co-op multiplayer aspect make that far less of a pain, but the game has a level editor and the ability to share and play each other's mazes. Is this game anything that great? No. But in comparison to stuff like Geo, it's a godsend. I don't know how it may or may not be reflective of where the series is going from here, but putting that aside, meh, it's okay, I guess.